Good. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Taking Up Space on Michelle A. Mayer podcast. Always excited about coming forward. Today is no different, you guys. Today, I have a really short one. I was battling on what I wanted to speak to today because I have my Bible study tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, what do I want to elaborate on today? And what can I really go in deep on tomorrow? So I'm just going to speak to something today that I saw on social media that spawned my interest. And what I saw was, what do you do when they hate that it's you? What do you do when they hate that it's you? And it reminded me of Jesus and Paul. Jesus and Paul. Because when I saw that on social media, I immediately thought, I wonder what would that be like to experience a situation when you have a profound anointing, you've been called forward to do something. Regardless if you feel like it, there's lag on this. Regardless if you feel like it or if you don't, God doesn't ask how do you want to do this? What do you think about this? I was thinking next year I would lead you into Jerusalem to do this, that, and the other. God doesn't do that. God doesn't give us any, hold tight, y'all. Let me see if I got this internet connection right. Let me see. Yep, it's right. Okay. So God does not give us any heads up. God does not ask us, do we want to do these things? God did not ask Paul, did he want to do this? You know, these things just, people are led to doing them. And, you know, when we look at the story of Jesus and Paul, we can look at two individuals that really are related to one another. Paul would not be known had it not been for Jesus. Jesus put Paul on the map. And you know, Jesus comes forward because of a calling that Jesus had over his life. Regardless to if Jesus knew the calling in its totality while he was in the fleshly form or not. I'm not here to debate that. That's a whole nother conversation. But the fact of the matter is that when both of these people came forward in their truth, they received a lot of backlash from those within the environment. Jesus, when he came forward, he was accepted wholeheartedly by the people. The people loved Jesus. The people were not Jesus's problem. Jesus's problem were the people that governed the people that the people looked up to. These were the problematic people in Jesus's life. And I guess my question for you is, what do you do when the people, when there is problematic situations at hand that you are experiencing and they're not from the people that you were called really to deliver to? Jesus was not called to deliver the Pharisees. Even though the Pharisees, all of them, benefited greatly off of Jesus's knowledge. They all sat at the feet of Jesus and learned from him. Every step of the way, every single thing he did, they learned from. That he was a trendsetter. Jesus was out here setting trends. He wasn't looking to be like anybody else. He wasn't looking to, befriend people for position. He was just a regular guy out here with regular people, speaking something that he knew to be truthful. And that he knew that the people, even those in high-ranking positions, everyone needed. He spoke life. He spoke truth to power. Yet it was the system that he was bound to, and that all of them were bound to, that were causing him so many hang-ups. It was the mentality of those engrossed in the system, not the people, because the people were not engrossed in the system. It was the mentality of those people that had made their positions their life. Without their position, they felt worthless. So they had it was a lot of fear as it related to Jesus's truth. It wasn't that he wasn't telling the truth. It was the fear surrounding, how does this truth affect my position? How does this man speaking his truth affect my role? They did not want it to be Jesus because they felt Jesus would not conform to their system. See, it was a system problem. It wasn't that Jesus was speaking something that wasn't truthful. Everybody knew that Jesus was speaking truth. Had nothing to do with truth. It was the fact that they could not corrupt him. See, that's the big part of this that everybody, I think, misses. It wasn't that they didn't believe in him. I don't believe that. Even if they didn't believe in him, why did they pay him so much attention? Why didn't they just ignore him? If he's not telling the truth, then let him just go on and do what he's doing. It was the fact that he was telling the truth. And not only was he telling the truth, he wasn't capitalistic about it. He wasn't vying for position within their system. So they could accept what he was saying to a point, and they probably would have accepted everything he said had he brought into their system. They were using the system as a carrot. This is what they would do to everybody that would come amongst the people. The system was the selling point. It was no longer the philosophies of God. It was not the theoretical aspects of finding the truth in the word of God and dissecting it down to its most condensed aspect so you get the full effect of it. It wasn't that. It was, let's play like we're really into this, but what we're really into is keeping a position and staying within the system. We're really proud of the system. And this is just what we got to do to keep our position within the system. This is our vertical in the system that we propagate so that we can be a part of the system. But the system was the real meat for them because it was capitalistic. So in them seeing someone like Jesus, like I said, he wasn't really... It wouldn't have been a problem had he been okay with being a part of the system. Because these people will go out and use the system as the selling point. I'm great because I'm Pharisee in the system. And if you want to be like me, you have to be able to befriend me. And you've got to be able to do all these different things to be a part of my group. And I will then determine if I will allow you into this system. But what do you do when someone like Jesus comes and he's not impressed with the system? Then you have no carrot to dangle. There's no leverage. Right? Because you're not really interested in God's kingdom. You're more interested in the earthly system. Yet Jesus is interested in God's kingdom. And Jesus's draw is building up God's kingdom. So there's nothing that you can offer him to make him bow to you. And this is why they just hated that it was him. They hated that it was him because of this. Had it been anybody else, they could have manipulated him. And in their manipulating him, they could water down the power of God. Because you cannot manipulate the power of God, friend. You get to finagling and manipulating what God has commanded you to do. You manipulate yourself out of the game. You can't manipulate it. We saw this with the spirit of Saul that I spoke to yesterday, the day before. He could not deliver on God's commandment. And that's what got him removed from his seat. Yet David could. David delivered exactly as it was to be delivered. Jesus, the same way. He delivers exactly the way it's to be delivered. And this is what made it so problematic, because the only difference between David and these people is that David has come forth at a time where things had not gotten convoluted. Moses, Joshua, Saul, and David were leaders of the house at a time that things had not gotten as corrupted as they would become after David transitions. David would create such a hierarchy, an outward projection of hierarchical rank in the physical world by what would be thought in his mind as creating these houses for God and these temples. This is where it became really problematic. When God gave David the okay to create him a house, it became very problematic. Now everybody's looking at these things like, wow, look at this. Look, this is wonderful. It's a power symbol. These are symbols of power, lasting power in the world. David thought these things. Yet David didn't implement them. It will be his son Solomon. And you will see that from the reign of Solomon down, it becomes debaucherous. Everything becomes really, really capitalistic. You got dogs that want to get in on the fight. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, and all of these other nations wanting to come in. These big dogs wanting to come in and partake of the greatness. It is no longer just a covering of, God covering these people and doing monumental things with these people throughout the world. Yeah, that was it also, but for a season. And now God is saying, okay, I'm about to really start flexing on y'all. We gained some momentum here. I have people in the house that are worthy for me to use as a vessel to flow my spirit and my power through. I'm about to flex out on all of y'all. And this is what he does with the temple of Jerusalem and the temple of David. I mean, it makes everything else pale in comparison. The stuff that you see today are mimicries to what God did for Jerusalem. I'm here to tell you. So when Jesus comes forward, they're in a debaucherous state. They done went from, I'm talking about, they're down very bad. They're down very bad as a nation of people. And let me know if this internet is affecting my my stream, you guys, because I don't know. I'm seeing a lag on my end, but I don't know if it's coming through or not. But nonetheless, let me just check here. Okay. So nonetheless, it has gotten debaucherous at this point. When I say debaucherous, it's decayed. They're not even, they don't even know where the central axis is. They're lost. They're taking things out of context. You have had Rome come in and Hellenize everything. They've taken all the scriptures and housed them in their own particular libraries. They've rewritten everything. Everything's been rewritten, and the people are lost. They're adding sub laws to the laws of God to control the people better, so that they manage these people better on a society level, to control the people and their activities. And the people are just going around in circles. And Jesus comes and he sets the record straight. He's not implementing anything new per se, while he's alive, he's clearing up all the falsehoods. He's just reminding the people of the fundamentals to who they are as children of God. He's empowering people spiritually. Yet the people that are in control of the people, the Pharisees and all of these people, the chief elders and Sadducees and all these type of people, they're okay with these sub-laws because these sub-laws allow them to have a lot of control. They can somewhat act as little mini gods in the world. They now have prominence. They have a title. They have something that they never would have had otherwise. In order to have these roles in the kingdom during David and Saul and Moses and Joshua's time, you really had to really be with it. It wasn't something you did and then you get home and you do something different. It was a lifestyle. It was who you are. Because that's the thing with this God, y'all. And this is the thing that many of the Pharisees and all the chief elders and all of those that were head of the nation at the time forgot. They've forgotten this. Is that this God is a God that sees. Hagar nailed it. This God sees. This God will search you. This God will search you and know everything of you in his searching you. This God will know your truest intention. This God will know your manipulations. This God will know what you love. This God will know what you hate. This God will know your truth. This God will know your falsehoods. You cannot hide anything. Nothing goes unnoticed with this God. I'm here to tell you. Nothing. The sciences that these fallen ones have in the world today are all mimicry to what this God can do. They're mimicking. So if the fallen ones have the science to know even a little bit of these things, they are nowhere near the completeness and the totality, nor can they stand within the total level of wisdom that God sees and has. And that's humbling. So, they hated that it was Jesus. It wasn't that they hated that he came forward. It wasn't that they hated what he was saying. They needed to hear it. A lot of them were impressed by Jesus. They just couldn't say it. They were. They wanted to say, Jesus, can I just talk to you a little bit? Can we just talk over coffee? Can we sit down and have some food and discuss some things? I want to pick your brain. I know they've thought that. This man was harmless. I know that they thought that, but they couldn't. Because livelihood is a livelihood thing. And they could not jeopardize falling out of alignment with that group mindset. So they didn't do it. Paul the same way. We look at Paul. Paul was one of these people that hunted Jesus and his followers. Please research my past podcasts on Saul Paul. You will see that he was a terrorist. Even when I look at Dr. Michael Heiser, he's a very influential person on biblical topics. Love to hear anything he has to say. Extremely thought-provoking. And when I listened to I heard him speaking to Paul not too long ago. And in his conversation, he was saying, after Paul transitioned, he made mention that, wherever he went to. And I noticed when he said that, he's thinking like me. Paul, I can't guarantee you Paul went to heaven. I don't know where he went. Honestly, he did a lot. He did a lot. I mean, but he needed to do a lot on the positive end of the spectrum to make up for all the wickedness he did on the negative. This is the main one of the main figures of the New Testament. This is the main builder of the Christian house. He hunted these people, y'all. He couldn't stand Jesus. And then he comes into an encounter with Jesus after Jesus transitions. You see, Jesus comes back in an emanation to the same man and uses him, puts a hook in his nose, turns him, and uses him to right a wrong. And Paul would make it his whole life work in righting the wrong. Him building the Christian house was his way of undoing negative karmic debt. If you don't believe in karma, okay, you could call it something else, skinny, slim, okay? Just think of you will reap what you sow. Cause, effect. Whatever name you want to label it as, Paul, who renamed himself Paul after he comes into this knowing, is now on a mission to rewrite his story. He is going to right his wrong as much as he can. You know why? Because he knows more than anybody just how much he did. He knows more than anybody how he plotted against people and looked to harm people that did nothing to him. People that God sent to bless the world. He himself looked to harm these people. And nobody knew the weight of that better than Paul. See, you don't know the weight of something until you get in it. It's easy to look at something from the outside and say, you know, I wouldn't do it that way, or I wouldn't do this, or I wouldn't do that. It's easy to do that. But when you're in it and that's you, and you know all the details of what you do and what you've done, it weighs differently on you. The seriousness is at a heightened degree. And many of these people, Jesus and Paul, will both get to a point where they will say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be the one having to carry this burden. But I'm indebted. I'm indebted to the point where I don't have a choice. I got to carry it. Paul in Jesus in Matthew. Uh, 26, verse 39. And he went a little farther and fell on his face and prayed, saying, "O my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt." Jesus himself is saying, Father, if it's not that big of a deal to you, can you let somebody else do this? And that's the thing with those that come forth. It's not that they are like, oh, I'm going to come forth and get on these people's nerves today. Let me go forth and stand in front of the Pharisees and annoy them today. Jesus didn't want to deal with it either. He didn't want to dealing with them just as much as they didn't want to deal with him. Paul, the same way. 2 Corinthians. Chapter 12, verse 8. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, that it might depart from me. He said that I asked God to let me alone 3 times. That it might go and leave me and let me get back to my life. And in neither instances, for neither of these people, did God release them from their calling. And that's my word to you today. And when I saw that on social media, they hated that it's you. It reminded me of God working through people, working through Jesus, working through Paul. And had they allowed the people to water down their calling, water down the deliverance of what God put within them, nobody would have suffered but them. Because God would have still got it done. God would have still gotten it done, friend. But they not knowing, this is how the enemy works. This enemy is a spirit. It works through people. When God asked Satan, where have you been? He said, I've been walking up and down to and fro in the earth. This means that he's everywhere. Everywhere. He can multiply himself over everyone if they are vibrating at that level that he can come in. He's everywhere. And if he can corrupt you, it defeats the whole purpose of you coming forward. That's the whole model behind the hate that is you. That's the whole central underlying aspect to it. They hate, they placate it like, yeah, I like what you're doing, but I just don't like you. Well, why? Because you can't corrupt it. You see, if it were anybody else, it wouldn't flow the same way because it would then be corrupted. You would then be able to manipulate it. And that's the point. I wanted to shine some light on that so we understand when we hear, these things, we understand what we're hearing. When God sends a messenger amongst his children, any of them, Elijah, Jesus, Paul, Gideon, Jonah, any Ezekiel, Daniel, any of the messengers and prophets that God sends amongst the people, you can't manipulate the flow of their spiritual water. King Nebuchadnezzar saw this with Daniel. He could not manipulate Daniel's spiritual water and did not want to. Joseph could not manipulate Joseph's spiritual water. In manipulating the spiritual water, friend, you convolute the output. You wanting to manipulate the spiritual water says that you don't want the truth. You want a lie. That's what they're telling you. They're saying, we don't want the truth. We want what looks like the truth and sounds like the truth, but not the truth. We want the lie. We want stuff that will never do anything for us. This is what they're saying. We want stuff that will never serve us, never benefit us, nor our children, nor our grandchildren, nor their children. That's exactly what they're saying. This is my word to you today on this short podcast episode. 30 minutes in today. Goody, goody, goody. You can't manipulate everything. You can't. When are we going to get to a place where we're able to eat table food? We've been eating baby food a long time. When are we going to be big boy and big girl enough to eat the table food? It's an interesting time. My episode for you today, you're loved more than you'll ever know. I'll never stop telling you. Be good to yourselves and be good to one another. Peace and love.